Hi folks, welcome to this session about accelerating innovation with low code. We put the session on just to kind of show everyone how organizations are tackling this at the moment, some of the recommendations by Visual, and also to walk through, like I said, challenges and the Power Platform. So I'm Jay, James Henry. I'm one of the principal consultants here at Visual. My focus is around business applications. So that's everything from the Power Platform through to Dynamics and beyond. And that's something you'll find out more throughout this presentation around why it's beyond and why it matters that it's beyond. I've been in Visual now for 7 or 8 years. I lose track. So I've been doing this for a bit of time, and hopefully I can take you on this journey and walk you through sort of this sort of new offering around Microsoft and then how Visual are pitching it. So in terms of our agenda, a couple of things we're going to cover. The first one being is understanding things of digital transformation, what that is at the moment, some of the challenges organizations are facing, and some of the external factors as well that impact that. We'll then touch on the Power Platform, and we'll touch on the low-code element of that and explain how some of our business users can interact with our developers or pro devs, where that overlap sits, and ultimately how that then applies to sort of your organizations, and how you can push forward with it. Final point is some of the common use cases. So we'll be looking at some of the products within the Power Platform and take you through how Visual has tackled those with some of our clients. So the first area I want to walk through is tackling digital transformation. So the key thing here is digital transformation isn't easy. A lot of the time, organizations feel that, okay, it's just technology, let's look at technology and that's what we focus on, but it's not just that. It's about people, about process, and about culture. And as you can see sort of on the screen, we can see a lot of these different challenges and how actually they're slightly different for the business and IT. And that's where you can get this divide between those two groups. Business side looking to do more with less budget, looking at resource constraints, high business expectations for transformation, mixed with things like challenging processes that may be slow and inefficient. Whereas on the IT side, we're trying to keep up with the business demand, establish those partnerships, maintain existing technology, prevent things like shadow IT, and we'll talk about shadow IT in more detail later on, and some of the security risks. So as we start going through low code and the Power Platform and how they can help, a lot of these points will be things reduced, they'll be managed, and really we'll be focusing on what the Power Platform is going to enable you to do. And some of the key things that we're looking at are how we can lower risk for the business, how can we improve productivity for users, and also improving things like the employee and the customer experience. And those bits are really key because it's not just about let's chuck some technology, it's about what the impact of that is, whether that's on the employees in the organization or whether that's on the customers that are purchasing services, products, and so on from yourselves. The other thing we need to consider as well is these external factors. So one being changing workforces. So we're increasingly seeing that the workforce are looking at things like tech-related challenges. They're looking at how they can make their lives easier using technology, and that is massively increasing. Adding on to that, they're not just doing it in a silo. So they're looking at how they can work with their colleagues, whether that be in the same team, across the organization, or wherever else, and how they can basically bridge that gap. So, they may know a process at the moment, how do we push on with that and get to a point where actually they can self-serve and build those solutions out themselves. And then the final point is around upskilling. Majority of people are looking to upskill, and they want to do that with their current employer. So not only are they, one, looking to take on technical challenges, two, looking to collaborate with each other to facilitate that, but they're also hoping that they can do that with their current employer. They don't want to move to do that. They want to stay where they are. They want to be comfortable with the position they're at and be able to use the tools to enable them to push on further. Adding to this, there's also this surging digital demand. So more apps are going to be built in the next 5 years than there has been in the past 40 years combined. That's massive, right? And that's not just by pro devs. That's not just by people who are just doing .NET or whatever else. That is about individuals in the business being assertive, taking that technology and making it work for them, right? And it's making them understand, right, where am I now? Where do I want to be? Not just in terms of personal development, but also in terms of the systems. You know, if I've got 5, 10, 20 systems, I don't want to have to manually go into each one of them. How can I make that easier for me? And that's where a lot of those apps are going to be built. The other side of it is there's a lot of data out there. You know, we've been harping on that data for years and years and years. You need to make use of it to generate insight. And if you've gone to one of my other sessions around things like data warehousing and Azure Synapse, you'll see that actually a lot of people aren't making the most of it, but they want to make the most of it. And looking at low-code technology, it's reducing that barrier to entry. So it's going to enable those individuals to make the most of their data without having to, become a data analyst, learning SQL, any of that sort of stuff. As amazing as those things are, most people aren't going to want to touch that. And then finally, it's these sort of digital work activities, and that's that point around, like, how can we make technology work for me, right? What do we currently have? Is that working? Is that fitting the gap that I need? Or actually, is there a desire there? And we're increasingly seeing that a lot of the technology that organizations have, although it might tick some of the boxes, it doesn't tick all of them. And as a result, they then start having to default back to, bringing in an expert, bringing in a pro dev, buying, 100 new different products that do the same thing. So we're looking at that. There's a massive drive to actually look at how we can take some of those processes we've got at the moment and how we can build those out in a unified platform. And what makes this really difficult is there aren't enough people to do it. So you don't have enough developers. The number of developers in terms of a pro dev capacity of .NET, C#, so on and so forth, JavaScript and so on, is reducing, with people preferring roles that don't have that technical aspect to it. And actually, there's a massive push of, rather than bringing in developers, although they're useful and they definitely have a place, and we'll touch on that in a moment, actually it makes more sense to skill up the current workforce and empower them to pick up some of that development work using the low-code technology. And this is where we come into the future. So, where does this all sit and how does it all work? So we've got those individuals who want to skill up. They want to collaborate with the team. They want to build solutions. They want to fill those gaps. That is on that improving business processes area. So you can see it on the left-hand side. They're potentially individuals who use things like Excel, SharePoint, but you also need to remember that it may not just be those. It could be things like Google Docs. It could be they're using Salesforce. It could be whatever product. They're interacting with those in some capacity, and they want to make sure those processes are better. You've then got these individuals who want to work across business units. They're looking at, right, maybe we've got a sales team that need to work with finance more closely. How can we make that work? How can we increase the efficiency of passing that information over? We here at Visual, we have our consultant division, and we need to work closely with our sales team. We need to work closely with finance. We need to work closely with our managed services team. How can we make that as efficient as possible? And then it's the modernize your business. So this is where we start looking at, actually, although your individuals who are looking to skill up can do a lot, sometimes you need some people to come in to do that modernization, where we're looking at setting governance, security, giving the building blocks, maybe iterating through some more complex things to enable those other users in the business to skill up and to meet that digital demand. So underpinning all of this, what we're looking for is a low-code platform, and we'll touch into what that is, but as you probably guess, it is the Power Platform, and we'll touch in those components in a moment. So when we look at a successful low-code strategy, there are 3 areas we want to look at. And those 3 areas all come together in something that's really, really important if you want to grow. I was about to use the word there, but I won't spoil it. So the first one being focus. So what we're looking at here is how we enable developers to focus on things that are impactful, right? It's all good giving them the tools, but if there isn't a focus there, it's going to be a shotgun of God knows what. So we need to look at how we handle that. The next being inclusion. So we spoke about, a tool set we can open that up to individuals, but how can we do that in a secure and governed way? Like I said, if we just say, here's an app, crack on with it, go off and build some stuff, although there'll be some real gems in there that we can use, there'll also be a lot of there'll be a lot of stuff that isn't useful that we can't make use of, or repetition. We use something that's going to allow us to have that governance, so we know what's been deployed, when it's been deployed, has it been deployed previously, and give people the visibility they need so they're not duplicating effort. And kind of the final point here is velocity. So if we give someone an app, but it takes them forever in a day to build stuff, it's probably not worth it. Whereas if we can give someone the tools that they need to innovate faster and accelerate in the time it takes to build, not only can we iterate through apps a lot quicker, and if we have a platform that enables that, we can do it in a controlled way. And if we can focus our efforts on certain use cases, we can actually start building something that, you guessed it, we can scale with. So if we can take those three aspects, bring them together, and we can then scale those out, we can then tackle that digital demand, whether that's external or internal. We can look at the workforce and look at how we can skill those up and give them the right tools that they need within that level of control. We can tackle the fact that there's aren't any developers, because everything is simple and there's a focus, and actually the products we can use should be open to everyone to enable collaboration. And if you cast your mind back to those challenges, things like reducing cost, we'll touch on that in more detail later on. But actually, if we have a platform that reduces that overall, allowing us to decommission systems, upgrade systems without having to bring in developers and so on, that's going to be a win-win all around. And that's what takes us to Microsoft low-code platform, Power Platform. So if you're not familiar with the Power Platform, the idea being is it's a collection of different products, and we'll do a deep dive into those in a moment. But it's supposed to give an end-to-end portfolio of all your low-code apps to enable you to transform based on what your goals are as an organization. So that could be looking at key focus on user experience. You might want to look at Power Apps. We'll touch on that in a moment. Or maybe you want to focus on just automation. How can we make systems speak to each other quicker so we can increase process efficiency? Maybe you've got a massive goal to increase revenue. How can we increase revenue, and how can we identify those processes that are inefficient and make them more efficient? Or maybe you've got a data team who really wants to have that single version of the truth and really want to build out those reports, but actually they don't have the right tools. And actually, what the Power Platform is going to allow you to do is tackle all those key points. And regardless of where you can start, you can always backtrack, you can always go forward, you can chop and change. It works for you. And one of the points we'll touch on in a moment is why it's important that we have not only those citizen developers, people in the business who know the business, who can iterate quickly, but also the pro devs and how they can iterate onto it. So I'm talking all this spiel, and it's not just me that's saying it's great, and it's not Microsoft that's saying they're great, but there's also a lot of industry recognized bodies like Gartner. You've got Forrester in there as well, MarketScape, so on and so forth. So it's not just me shouting at you saying, right, here's something that's really good that we use. Yeah, we definitely do, but actually it's industry recognized. If you want to look at quite a number of organizations now are all looking at using ways of using low code, because that's where the shift is going. If you're relying too much on developers and these longer 6 month to 12 month projects to build an app or to update a process or something along those lines, it's not quick enough. You're going to lose out on market opportunity, and you're going to lose out on hitting those goals, those strategic goals, quickly. So by using something like low code, not only can you tackle those quickly, but you can do things that you can fail fast, figure out what works, what doesn't, quickly iterate through it, go through it continuously, and then you can get feedback from different users, quickly iterate. And again, having those skills in the business just means that your platforms are more supportable. Like I said, we'll go into loads of those different benefits in a moment. So one of the examples we've got on here is by Walgreens. This is one of Microsoft's customers, and they were talking about their journey. They're talking about how they've used things like Power Apps, Power BI, Power Automate, which are all products in the Power Platform to allow them to cut the time it takes to get an app and move into production, or to progress it along. So what they're looking at here is, rather than taking months or years, which I kind of alluded to previously, is taking weeks. And we've had some clients ourselves which have taken days. So it's gone are the times where it's taking months and months and months to develop an app to meet a business purpose. And we're now looking at days and even maybe a couple of weeks to get something up and running and ready for production. Likewise, again, another one of Microsoft's clients here. They're looking at building applications, but it's not just about building apps for building app's sake. It's about how we can do that in a secure fashion. How can we can have a tried and tested architecture. So we'll talk about landing zones at some point. How we can make people responsible and accountable for those apps. How we can look at real-time usage and telemetry. Are there any sort of the security teams monitoring IT? How can we proceed with a level of confidence? Again, these are all things that a lot of organizations are facing, and actually Power Platform can answer them pretty quickly and pretty easily. And that takes us on to the Power Platform and then the different components. So it includes 5 applications, from app, automation, chatbots, websites, and BI. So Power Apps, that is allowing you to build applications, capture data, store it in a single location or in your different existing systems, allows you to innovate over it quickly, and there's a low barrier to entry. If you've got experience with taking a picture on your phone, you can build an app, and it's as simple as that, and we'll show you a demonstration of that shortly. With Power Automate, it's how we automate. This is how we connect systems together. Gone are the days where you have to take an email, attach a file to it, send that for someone for approval. We can do all that automatically by a click of a button, and actually that's going to save you. That one action might save you 5 minutes. Scale that up over a year. That's 5 minutes a day. That's massive. It's a massive cost saving in terms of time, and it means that as an end user, you can focus on doing things that actually matter, and you can do those to a high level of quality. And as a business, you can ensure that people are focused on the goals that you've set, and they can be achieved quickly and easily and sooner than you initially anticipated. Our virtual agents, this is where we start talking about bots. So you want to go onto your website, start a message, answer some questions, and eventually go through to an agent, or resolve that issue there and then. That's what Power Virtual Agents will allow you to do. And it's not just for websites. Bring it internally. Have an internal bot that advises the organization about HR policies and procedures. Something that we're trying to build at the moment is looking at how we can get new starters to ask a bot to say, I want to submit expenses. How do I do that? The bot will pop up and say, go to this app. Here's the direct link to it. Click onto it. It shows up in Teams there and then, ready to use. And from there, they can just submit their expenses and they're good to go. And they can bookmark and save them or whatever else. Power Pages, it's an interesting one. It's relatively new, but it's built on a technology called Power Portals. What this essentially is how we can build apps in a canvas-like experience of dragging and dropping, using our data and getting an app out there and ready with all the theming that we need without having to write a single line of code. It's pretty remarkable. So, and if we can access that, if we can use it using our real data, it's going to allow our customers to interact with their data. They can submit information quickly and easily, whilst also, again, building on that customer experience. Like I said right at the start, if we can make the customers feel happier, that we know what their problems are, we can resolve them quickly and easily, they're more likely to come back to us, they're more likely to do repeat business with us, and then they're more likely to shout about us. The word of mouth is very strong. If they say, these guys have an excellent portal, I can raise tickets, I can access different packages I can download, I can access a knowledge base, it really shows that you care about them and give them the tools that they need. And then finally, and arguably one of my favorite, Power BI, this is how we can take that data that we're capturing, whether that be in the Power Platform, whether that's outside the Power Platform. We're doing a lot of stuff with NetSuite at the moment, and how we can use Power BI to hook onto that, generate finance reports, make those available to end users via a single curated data model, and therefore enable those users to go off and self-serve, generate insight for board meetings or whatever else, allowing them to refresh in real time. So it gives the answers that people need now, not in a day's time or in a week's time or in a month's time. And also, we see this a lot where you have teams of people who spend a day a week building a report, sending it off on an email. Why bother when you can just create the report once, get it to refresh, and people can just go to a link? Easy as that if they're interested. Worst case, you can send push notification out to them. And again, with all those sort of 5 products, that's all achievable. And then underpinning all of that is the additional Power Platform features. So we can look at managed environments. That's going to give you governance. We can look at AI models. This is how we're going to build on top of the data we have. We can look at a single data source with things like Dataverse, a single version of the truth. We can look at low-code Excel expression-like language. That's PowerFX, right? And there's 750 connectors. So and they're growing, and you can create your own. So there's no reason why you can't integrate with anything, because you can integrate with everything. There's no reason why you would necessarily need a pro developer to continue, because it's using a language similar to Excel. You've got a single version of the truth that ticks your boxes around having that single data source. AI builder, who doesn't love AI? That's how we're going to build and have those models and add more into our data to make it more meaningful, which is going to put us ahead of the curve. And the data connectors, I think I've already touched on that one, but that's how we're going to start hooking everything up. So with Power Apps, some really good examples here at the moment, and this is how we'll go through this in a bit of high level detail. But what you can see on the screen here is we've got an individual who is potentially new to building apps. They've taken a picture on their phone of a form that they want to build out. There we go. So they've uploaded the picture. Once that's uploaded, Apps is going to go through, identify those components, titles, controls, so on. You can quickly go through, check them over, make sure that they look correct. You go through the next. You then want to create a table to capture that data. That's in Dataverse. It's your single version of the truth. And once you click go, you're done. So your form is created. You can have multiple pages. You can have different lists. You can interact with them, and that's all via low code. And where your pro devs might come into it is extending that functionality. So if you need to integrate with an existing system, that's where your pro dev might want to come in and help you out. Or if you're doing something more complex, again, that's where you may want some support. Next one is around Power Automate. So here's when we can have an automated workflow. That could be event driven. So that could be, when an email enters a mailbox, go off and perform an activity. And one of the things that we were looking at for one of our other clients recently was looking at how we can take data sets which are emailed in daily and consolidate those into a single version of the truth. So what we'll do there is use Power Automate, take the data set out, combine it, and have that ready in a location ready for reporting, and we can use Power BI to hook onto it. So in this case, we have, when a new email arrives, we're going to go through into each email. We're going to do some additional actions off there. We might do some AI, look at sentiment. Is it positive? Is it negative? If you think about feedback, NPS, those sort of scores, you could take the information, process it, and then off the back of that, make a decision of, do we need to contact them to find out more? Can we bring that into our system and link it up slightly differently? So there's a load of available options here. Create files in OneDrive, as you can see on the screen there, so that there's a lot you can work with. And like I said, it's the same connectors. So Power Apps connectors the same as Power Automate, and so on. But then Power Virtual Agents. So this is where we can look at a chat box. You've got the options here to either go in there, create a nice little checklist, point people to the right place. If you want to do a bit more advanced and you want to add a bit more code in there, you definitely can do. But essentially, you can build those topic areas. Going back on that example earlier on around HR, you can create a topic that goes through HR policies, give everyone the information they need to know, raise common questions, get users to submit their question, return an answer, and then you can do other things off the top of that, whether you might trigger a Power Automate flow, link them off to a Power App to capture some data, maybe even show them a Power BI report. And that's what's going to help connect those users with their data. Power Pages. So we touched on this. This is the kind of website, and this is how we can get our customers and our users to interact with our data directly wherever they are. So here we can see the interface. It's a drag and drop interface. We can configure our themes, the look and feel, add different images, update text. It is very similar to a Canvas experience where, like I said, it's just drag and drop. So, gone are the days where you need to get a developer to come in to, build out in HTML, PHP, whatever, get some CSS on there. You can still do that, definitely. If you want something really custom, you can still do that. But the aim here is to enable those users who don't have that experience to come in there, quickly build something out that is ready for production from the off. And if they want to build on top of that, they can do by iterating. And then Power BI. So Power BI is how we can then take that data, bring it into a single location, have a single version of that truth. So whether that be Dataverse, or we can use things like data flows. And then from there, create our insight and analysis. So that insight is going to allow the organization to quickly act on their data. It's going to reduce the amount of time it takes people to build those reports. Data is going to be there in real time, so people can action data quickly and easily to stay ahead of the curve and tackle that emerging demand, and also do things like predictive analytics. So you can predict what's going to happen in the next 3 months so that you can prepare yourself for it, whether that be you're working in a field service capacity where you need to bring in more people to meet that demand. That's what we use here. We have utilization metrics. We want to make sure that we can stay utilized, that we can keep our lead times at a reasonable rate, and we can provide that service to our clients. So we use this analysis to figure out what's happening next and how we tackle it. Other organizations might do it slightly differently. So they may have, we've got these products that we're selling, what's working, what isn't, what's trending upwards, what isn't. Do we need to focus on these other ones because they've got a better margin? And again, all that sort of stuff we can build into a report once. It will refresh on its own and give you the insight you need when you need it. And then underpinning all of this is we've got the AI builder, we've got Dataverse, we've got managed environments. I won't go into that in too much detail, but the AI builder, that's 17 plus AI models which require no code, which could be text analysis, image and object recognition, so on and so forth. Dataverse, we can store terabytes and terabytes of data every day. It's highly scalable. It's part of your data platform. And if you do want to take this and actually push it into your current data platform, maybe use things like Azure Synapse Data Lake, that's all possible out of the box as well with no code. So again, you've got extensibility. And then managed environments, they're going to allow you to increase governance with little to no effort. You're going to be able to track what's going on within those environments. Tens of thousands of organizations, need governance. Every organization needs governance, but a lot of them are using the Power Platform to enable that governance with environments, giving that options to monitor, and we'll touch on that in more detail later on. So we're going to look at the proven value in a real world scenario. I mean, you can see a few points in there. We're looking at reducing the cost to develop apps, right? That means that actual cost to innovate is a lot lower, which means that you can get that value sooner. And if you can get that value sooner, you can hit your targets sooner, whether that's increasing revenue, increasing the employee experience, retaining clients, nurturing accounts, and so on. Data entry, if we can make sure that data is coming in correctly, it means that there's less work for someone later on to go through and fix those. That's efficiency saving. That person can then focus their time on something more impactful that's going to impact the business, whether that's commercial activities to help increase revenue again, whether that's to help innovate other processes, whether that's to help make processes more efficient. So on a lot of these points, we're making sure that either we're tackling our goals sooner, or we're making things more efficient so that we can do more of them, or we can spread our wings and develop. And that again goes back to those challenges right at the start. Another key point in there, reducing time to market. If you've got emerging market trends and you can see something's going to change, if you need to develop a new system, it's going to take a year, you're going to miss it. If it's going to take you 2 weeks, you're probably going to hit it, and you're probably going to be a leader in that regard. So again, something really, really impactful there to take away. So 3 scenarios here, right? That Microsoft that will pitch. And these are three areas that Visual also has offerings around. So if you need help, whether that's helping everyone to innovate, if it's building those applications or automating processes, Visual here, we can help you walk you through that and share what those next steps are. We've got a really nice slide later on that talks you through from step 0 through to 6, where you need to be, how you're going to get there, and how we can help you. So when we're looking at enabling everyone to innovate, we're looking at how we can empower those users to build applications with limited experience, using sort of one platform that supports it. So we've got these organizations where there's many different systems. IT can't manage them because there's no security, no governance. Maybe there's multiple vendors, so your bills are higher. The actual cost to manage those apps are high, and you need to bring in specialist experts every time. It doesn't really work. You need to go with 7 different partners. Whereas actually, if you look at one platform, everything sits within the same system. You've got the Power Platform that's going to connect Microsoft 365 to Azure. You're going to make use of technology that you may already have. Doesn't mean you need to get rid of them. You can build on top of it using the Power Platform. And that's going to act as a single point. It's going to build on that security and governance. It's a fully integrated architecture. So it's going to lower, TCO. It's going to lower those multiple bills. And you can use technical resource you already have. And if you're looking to skill up your individuals to handle this, then actually the cost to do so is minimal. And it's easy to start. You can start today. The other side of it is we need something that we can control at scale. So whether that's security around data, how's that going to be protected? Compliance, are there regulations, privacy rules you need to follow, all the way through to governance. And governance is a big one here because it's going to allow the IT team to monitor what's going on, manage what's being published and created, logging activity, tracking usage, and using things like predicting trends. And if you need to integrate with other third parties like DevOps, GitHub, so on and so forth, you're using that pro dev function. It's all in one place. So you're now tackling everyone from the business user through to the developer. So here's another customer Microsoft ZF group. What they're looking to do is streamline those manufacturing processes. So they're building solutions weekly. They're building 50 solutions which are already in production. They're saving 1,500 hours a year, and that's only increasing. Put that into context into your organization. If you can have those efficiency savings and empower those users, it's not just that time that's saved, it's the cost, it's the budget allocated to certain products. And it also raises this question of actually, can you start getting rid of other products to bring them onto the Power Platform? Can you, rather than going out to constantly develop those products, just extend it with the Power Platform? Or if you're looking at rehosting completely, moving into Azure or whatever else, actually it's another benefit to that because you then have access to these other tools that are available. And that's what takes us quite nicely onto rapidly build apps. So when we look at this, really key statement here, 75% of legacy apps can be modernized faster with Power Platform. So if you're looking to replace an app, rebuild it, refactor, so you build new capabilities, the Power Platform is going to tick all those boxes. It can definitely help out with that. If you're looking just to get rid of an app, it probably can't help too much with that, but there are tools in the Power Platform you can use to facilitate it. Looking at rehosting, remaining, again, it doesn't matter too much because Power Platform can hook onto systems like gateways. If you're going to move things into IaaS, Azure, AWS, whatever, we can hook onto that sort of stuff as well. So we've got, although we have those sort of key 3 areas, which is the bread and butter and what Power Platform really excels at, that's not to say we can't do other bits. And actually a lot of organizations are more in those 3 brackets anyway. The thing is, and it is a worrying thing though, is that only covers the tip of the iceberg. That there's a lot more underneath it, and this is stuff that we know. There's stuff we don't know, and this is what shadow IT is organizations who are going away. They may have their own strategy, but teams within the organizational departments might have their own view as to how they do things. They might use Google Sheets. They might use an Access database. I'm sure everyone who's listening in has probably used an Access database at some point and probably knows that they have one that they probably shouldn't be using. Actually, what we can do with this is, with the Power Platform, give that visibility, give the visibility of those components, and provide the next steps on how we can bring that into the fold and under that visibility and governance of the Power Platform. And what we're looking at when rapidly building apps is, let's identify those cases, let's move them into the Power Platform, and we can do that with all our citizen developers. And where the pro devs come in is iteration. So there'll be elements in there which may not be accessible to start off with. So we may need to build some APIs. There's some building blocks that we can just, they're constantly being used. Let's just standardize them and share them out. Maybe we need to skill up the citizen developers, or maybe they're learning new things. The pro devs can help out with that upskilling. And if we look at custom controls and UX, pro devs can build on top of that as well. And through that iterative process, you're now skilling up your citizen developers so that they can quickly iterate through those apps. They can quickly build those apps based on the use cases that we've identified previously. Now, automating business processes. This is then talking about what do we need to consider here? There's 3 areas. There's user experience. How's the user going to interact with the service? Whether that's a customer, whether that's a employee. Process automation. When they interact with it, what's going to happen next? Do we want to enrich data? Do we want to make use of other services? If users are manually doing a lot of work themselves, it might make sense for them to do something like RPA, robotic process automation, create a workflow and crack on. And then finally, it's data and services. So it's how can we connect all these 3 things together in a single view to enable those users to automate their day-to-day. So one example could be, we are capturing data in a form. Maybe we're using Power Apps. That's our low-code application. From there, we want to analyze things like sentiment, or we want to predict some stuff that's going to happen in the future, or we're looking at processes and efficiency. We'll then go through process automation. And then maybe off the end of it, we want to store that into Dataverse. Or maybe actually you're not ready for Dataverse and you've got an on-premises system that you're still making use of, but you plan to migrate. Doesn't matter, we can hook onto both of those and we can move things over based on when the time changes, when the time suits. So when we look at these sort of automating those business processes, we've kind of got these 4 categories. So we've got Discover. We can use Process Advisor. That's a feature of Power Automate that enables you to identify those bottlenecks and look at areas to improve. We can then create those apps or create those processes using workflows in Power Automate. And that product's going to allow you to tackle off many different triggers, many different actions, and action that automation. Building on top of that is then how do we enhance that? So we're doing some automation, but actually, can we enrich it? Can we add sentiment? Can we go off and run a different model to bring back some extra data that we may have not previously thought about? That's where we can use AI Builder. And then extending. Think about that process example I gave you right at the start around the user asking HR question. Rather than having to pester someone for questions, sending loads of emails. If you've got thousands of users in your organization, that becomes unmanageable at that point. Using Power Virtual Agents can hook into all these different things, answer those quickly and easily, reduce the number of emails. And like I said, don't just focus it. Don't just focus your view on one person. That one person who's raising a question, there's an efficiency saving there, but equally, look at the HR team. If they're receiving 101 emails a day, that means that they can't do their HR activities and their HR job. Actually, by bringing something like this in, you're increasing that efficiency saving there also. And actually, that's going to impact the customer, the employee experience. So your employees are going to get a much better view as to what's going on. They're going to feel more connected to the business because they're going to get what they need quickly and easily. There's an example from T-Mobile. So this is a T-Mobile and Sprint merger. They required systems on both sides to sync seamlessly. And they had an issue around APIs causing sort of lags in data between those systems, and they required a number of manual processes. But building the custom API, that's your pro dev, they can then integrate that with things like RPA and Power Automate, which again would just be your normal business users, to then quickly integrate those legacy APIs. That's reducing that function. That's reducing those manual processes. So there's a saving there, but also it's a merger. So if you want to provide a consistent customer experience, you can imagine those manual processes is going to impact that. By having it fully integrated means that everything's seamless and you're going to appear more connected to your end users. So next steps. There's quite a few, but actually they're all really easy. And you may find that you've already done a lot of them. The first one is focus on those use cases. You need to identify use cases because that's going to set that vision. If you cast your mind back to the focus, we want to focus on what we actually want to achieve and how we're going to achieve it. We can then quantify that value by walking it through with you, doing a business value assessment, understanding what's going to happen next, and seeing how the Power Platform can answer that. From there, we need to make sure the platform's ready. We need to make sure that what we have is suitable for building those applications, that the development team can build those out quickly, that the business knows that everything's under governance and security, and we've got the monitoring there. And that takes us quite nice into learning those skills. So we then need to look at skilling up. How do we get individuals to know how to use the products? We can run our platform in day sessions, classroom sessions, skill them up on the specific product areas, and start enabling them to innovate. And the way we enable them to innovate is hackathons. Get everyone into a room, get little groups going, bring out one of these use cases, and let's have a competition to figure out who does the best solution. And we can have a bit of a score at the end, figure out what works, what doesn't work, collaborate. And that's a really key point there, because that's linking back to our velocity point of let's work together to get things innovated quickly. Those hackathons are going to enable that. And let's embracing the citizen developers. Once we know what those items are, let's go off and build them. Let's get the team, let's get the organization to build that out, solution out, get something up and running into the business. And at that point, you're self-sufficient. And at that point, you can crack on. And the best way to start this is by engaging with someone like us. So what we can do, we've done this many times before. We can come in, we can walk you through those steps, give you that guidance, set up the infrastructure, the background, and so on. Give you those processes and enable you to go off and do that in the future. So that way you can go off or go away, both those applications out quickly, automate processes quickly, have that single version of the truth that's built out in Dataverse, and have a platform that's going to scale with you and scale on demand based on your emerging demand in your areas. That's it. We're 45 minutes in. Hopefully you've had a lot of insight out of this session. There's a lot to take in. I do appreciate that, but there's some clear next steps. And if you're serious about innovating, and if you're serious about making the most of your employees and ensuring that they can develop, ensuring that they can build out those solutions, making sure that you hit your goals for either increasing revenue, nurturing accounts, building that customer experience, this is the platform for you. And even if you're not ready to tackle the entire thing, that's fine. Take what you need as and when, because no matter where you are, there's a starting point with the Power Platform. And there's some really cool next steps there. And again, even if you don't want to start right now, keep in tune with it, because there's updates every month. Products are updated all the time, and actually you'll probably find that soon enough you'll be using it. What most people don't really realize is they're already paying for it. So a lot of the licenses you have will already have some Power Platform functionality, and that's your starting point. Make use of those licenses, make use of technology you've already got, and start creating new applications to tackle those challenges that you're facing. Like I said, thanks for tuning in. I've been Jay. If you want to reach out, have a chat with me, whatever else, there's my LinkedIn. I'm more than happy to help out where I can. We can get like a 30-minute call in place, walk through where you're at, what those next steps, and hopefully we can really help you drive the adoption of a low-code platform that's going to enable you to push on and make the most of your investment. Cracking. So, like I said, thanks for joining, and I'll hopefully we'll speak to you guys soon. Catch you later.